Okay, hello. Welcome to the first 2017 video chat. I have a few announcements and then I'll start answering questions people submitted and then answer ones from the live chat after that. So the announcements, not a whole lot. Let's see. First off, the dates of the next chat and game sessions will all be in the YouTube description. As I said, it's easier because sometimes I remember the wrong date and say that, and then I realize, oh wow, I shouldn't have said that. So that just keeps it simple. Then that'll go up in a day or so. For I guess what's coming up this month, I'm working on Game Dungeon, although I'm kind of rethinking a little bit. I wanted to address, some people thought like the last couple Game Dungeons, weren't the best, and I sort of agree. I don't think it has to do with I don't think it has to do with because they're short. Like if you don't like them just because they're short, I'm gonna veto you on that because some games I'm gonna want to have them short, others not. So that's not part of the new changes. Wow, that wobbles the camera. Okay. Uh, the but I think the thing is I was hoping to cover like a much broader spectrum of games that I could sort of shoot out and then occasionally have the ones that are sort of the more traditional game dungeon. Now I'm not so sure about that. I think that the thing is for game dungeon, I think the best episodes are ones where I really have something to say about them. So that can be obscure ones or mainstream one. I like to cover some of the lesser known ones because not a lot of people have heard of them always, but so I think I may have to. It's gotten me rethinking which games I'm going to cover next. Right now, a lot of the games I would like to cover for Game Dungeon, I actually haven't finished. So there are always ones I meant to come back to that, I got about halfway or three quarters of the way through. So that's going to slow things a little bit. But in the meantime, I do hope to get some recording help. I'm talking with someone right now that I think that's going to go well for some ones that I have finished, but would take a ridiculous amount of time on my end to do an episode of if I were to just go through and play the game again. But they can do that, and I can just write the notes. It should go a lot smoother. So I'm still undecided if I'm going to have additional editors or not. So because it's a gamble. Because if they do a good job, that saves me a lot of time. If they don't, that not only do I have to come in after them, but that delayed everything up until that point. So I don't know. I'll at least have one or two out this month, but I'm going to be working on more than that. And I think I'm going to take the last week of this month, starting from the last week of this month, and I just have to work on the movie. Like it's driving me crazy, like having to divert time away from that to other things. So that's what's happening this month. The other major announcement I have is I've, at least for now, I could change my mind again. I'm canceling the PlanetSide 2 sessions. The thing is, it's just not fun for me anymore. It's like the gameplay is just not quite clicking. I'm not abandoning playing with fans though. In fact, after this goes up, I wanted to have a Reddit thread started where people could vote on what games might be best to substitute for that. If we can't get any consensus, my vote would probably be for Zombie Panic. So the problem is, we're not going to find any one perfect game because it's the accessibility, the price, and like the number of players that can join in. So if I do Zombie Panic, we'll have overflow servers. So even if you can't play with me the whole time, you can kind of rotate in and out with other players. Another one that's been suggested has been Realm of the Mad God, which I think can support everyone. It's free, but it isn't. There will be a little bit of a learning curve to that. I haven't played it much at all. And also, it only has the 4:3 aspect ratio, which isn't the most fun. So, we'll see. But I'm willing to go with whatever game the crowds want to, as long as I have some interest in the game. If it's just not my kind of game, I'll veto it. And also, if it doesn't cost too much. I think we should, I mean, free would be best, but I think we should put a price cap, $10, $15 max. So, uh, so for people who want to join. So I'll figure out the dates on that. It'll probably be about 2 weeks from now. I'll put that in the description also. The thing about PlanetSide is, I liked it when things clicked, and it really feels like a game where if I can mod a couple aspects of the gameplay, I would love it 10 times more. But it just gave me this Valhalla syndrome where it's like we never really have a true victory or defeat, or if it comes from arbitrary reasons. The thing is, they changed a lot of the gameplay shortly after I made the PlanetSide 2 recruitment video. So, and it really kind of, kicked the stool out of having those big groups that you can kind of push forward through. It really minimized the impact of that by trying to auto balance everyone. And then they had the update where you can just sort of win by points rather than territory. And I don't know, it just doesn't click for me as much now. I mean, I could revisit it at some point, but for now, I'm suspending it. But we'll keep doing stuff. We'll just different game. Okay, and I think that's all I have for announcements, unless I'm probably forgetting something. So I guess I'll go to the questions. Lately, for the questions, I've been having people submit them on Reddit just so I can have a rough idea of what people want me to answer the most. Because sometimes there'll be a question, it could be just be that one person wants to hear the answer, nobody else does. I don't have a way of knowing that. Whereas this is better because the stuff at the top, obviously, people are more likely to want to hear the answers to. So that's what I'm going with. All right, so I'm pulling that up. Okay, what's your production roadmap for 2017? Certainly the movie has priority, but what are your other goals aside from that? You have it, and then he talks about game dungeons in the chat I'm doing. Well, there's stuff I definitely plan to do, and there's stuff I'd like to do. And because my time estimates tend to be atrocious, the only stuff I'm definitely going to do for 2017 are a lot more game dungeon and work on the movie. That's the only thing I'm absolutely committing to. Now, for things I'd like to do, that's a much longer list. I'd like to get more I'd really like to start some sort of short, if I can get enough help, animated videos for some ideas I've had. It's sort of a stopping point in between now and the movie, between doing actual machinima. Really, if the movie production goes well enough, it's conceivable I could have some short machinimas leading up to it, but I don't know about that happening this year. Another thing I'd like to do, I'd really like to do, this is probably top of the list for things I'd like to do. I mean, that would be get an update to the website so it looks better on mobile devices and it's easier to navigate and access everything, because it's definitely outdated in a couple ways. I mean, not just in the interface, but in the coding too. After that, though, I'd like to use some of that same code. Might as well tell people what I have planned. I have this whole sort of gradual campaign I'm planning for trying to stop getting games killed, where I still have to talk to more people for legal advisors and everything for various countries. But it sounds like one thing that's going to help a lot is if you can make a really clear case as to yes, games are being killed. So I thought one really helpful thing for this would be to start getting sort of a wiki page of sorts to show all the stuff that's being killed, and it can be different categories, like like more mainstream ones or more mobile games. Have screenshots, trailers, basically show everything that's being lost. And I'd like to get that up at some point, and then get some volunteers to help, submit items to it or approve it. So in that way, when we start contacting these organizations, we can just point, here's a few hundred games that have been killed. And out of those 100, here's a couple dozen really high production value, you know? So that way we can show it's like a long established pattern of this happening where, you know, people pay their money, then game goes down, that's it. Everybody's screwed. So I like to get that. Yeah, actually, the next video from me is probably going to be a dead game news, is because that's starting to stack up. Several have been killed since the last episode. So that's another thing I'd like to do. I'm trying to remember. See, I don't want to say too many things because, you know, the more I get into, the less time I have for everything else. But if I get to if I get more comfortable with where I am on the movie, I might start doing sort of Twitch streaming sessions of going through some old graphic adventure games that I've been meaning to, ones I've never played that I've been interested in playing just for years but never got around to. I thought that might be a little more fun, at least for me on my end, to do with other people, because then when I get to a point where I'm stuck, because that's obviously going to happen, then I can, you know, ask people to tell me what to do next. But that's just a small thing. But yeah, more videos in general would. But I love to have some more like kind of smaller creative ones rather than just stuff that's sort of, I guess I would call Game Dungeon mutant reviews, you know, because they can mutate into other things. But you know, stuff that's like an actual original script. I'd love to get more stuff like that out. Okay, so next question. Hey Ross, if it's okay with you, can you tell us more about the scars you mentioned in the Arcade America episode? Perhaps even show them. Okay, let's see. Pull up the preview. Let's show a few. Well, this is the major one. Like you can sort of see it along my arm there. And let's see, I always forget which side of my neck it's. I think it's on this side. I can't see. There should be a good gash along my neck somewhere there. That's from the same incident where. Short version of it, I should make up a better story. I should make up a story about this, but what happened is I slammed into a door and the glass came raining down on me. You know, cut a carotid artery. Exciting times. Well, it's not really, I don't know if it's a scar, but my tongue can have a weird shape. Like on that side. That's from me falling down a flight of stairs, and I slammed head first into this metal shelf that, like, it had like this jagged corner on the side, and my face must have hit that, and I think it permanently cut off part of my tongue. But let's see, that was just me probably being clumsy. Let's see. Does that show up here? Here, maybe it's better if I turn the light off a second. Let's see. Yeah, okay. You can sort of see the scarring on my hand there. That one, I'm pretty sure, is from a bicycle accident where I hit this animal. To this day, I don't know what it was. I was coming down the curve on this bike path. This animal, I figured either had to be a cat or a groundhog, just darted out right in front of me. I had no time whatsoever to react. There was no time to even swerve. Forget about brakes. That sent me flying off the bicycle, scraped up my knees and hand. I was just a bloody mess. It looked like I had bandages on me quite a bit after that. Looked like the mummy. Let's see this one. Here, I'll turn off the light again. This one little spot there. Yeah, I can't really see it. That one's actually from some dumb Boy Scouts screwing around with molten plastic around a fire while I was trying to cook some of the food. They're like, oh, okay. Like they weren't trying to burn me. They just did by being idiots in the same vicinity. And so, yeah, that's from molten plastic. Stuff on my knees is from bike accidents. That's all I can think of. So. Oh yeah, somebody's saying the animal died. Well, mate, you would think that. I was not in a happy mood after that happened, I was ready to, like, once I got up, I wanted to go back and just kill the thing because I was so upset. I was so upset over it, and it was gone. So I don't know what it was. I think it had to be either a cat or a groundhog. Okay, so yeah, I think that's about all I have for scars. Hey Ross, how would you filibuster in Congress? That's not something I would want to do, but if I had to, it seems like once I go to the chat to start answering questions, those can go on forever. So I think I would just open up a chat like, here, ask me questions about this bill or anything, and I figure that could go on to the point of exhaustion. Let's see. Okay, yeah. How do you go about finding music for your game dungeon outros? Do you have a list of sources for good music or something? I've been desperately searching for good music that I can use in my own YouTube videos without any issues like copyright strikes, for instance. But so far, all I've found has been absolute garbage. It seems like either I've been looking in the wrong places or they don't exist. Yeah, well, the first thing I always do is most of the episodes, I try to have the music at the end be from the game itself. So, if sometimes I'll hear a track and think, yeah, this would be kind of a good energy for the end, then I'll use that. Now, I don't always have that option, unfortunately. That's where it's the same thing. That can really slow down an episode when I don't have fitting music. Because if you have an episode with good music, that can just change the whole vibe of everything. Like I noticed a lot of people like the zombie stare music at the end of the Secret World video episode. But see, that was part of like a fan made soundtrack contest they had. So I was like, oh wow, this is pretty great. I should put this at the end. But for everything else, yeah, I try to get something game related that's hopefully obscure enough that that the copyright holders aren't going to have a problem with it. But yeah, it's not easy. I ran into that problem in the last episode for the ski game, where I really did not like the music that they had by default, so I just filled it in with a lot of royalty-free music. But the thing is, I always feel like it's kind of a failure when that happens because, I'm sure there's 1,000 other YouTube videos, maybe more, that are using the exact same music. So then it's just, okay, this song again. But, when you have time pressure, you have limited options. But yeah, it'd be great. I should probably dig up more sort of Commodore 64 music. Nobody's going to care about that as far as copyright. Or just something real old where it's not an issue. But yeah, I don't have any magic source, unfortunately. Just I try to pluck it from where I can. I think for one game, I forget at which episode I used some Commander Keen music and that. And then for Spider-Bot, that was making those weird sounds in the game for part of the level. So I'm just like, here, let's just have that. Spider-Bot was so weird anyway. It's like, let's just throw that in there. Okay, would you ever consider doing a spin-off series? Something along the lines of Ross's movie Veranda, where you look at extremely old and obscure movies in the same fashion you look at games. Well, I don't know if I'm going to have the same sort of background to know all these obscure movies. But that's another thing I can maybe do or maybe not. The thing about movies is that they are way more likely to set off some sort of copyright flag. So that, even if it's complete fair use and you're following all the rules, the YouTube algorithms don't care. So, if you're going to do all that work, then you put it up and you find you can't use this. That's kind of frustrating. I think for videos, I would have to have something where I think I would have to have editing help for that, where somebody goes through, tries to match the footage. And then what you do is a trick if you think that might be a problem, is you upload it privately and then just sort of sit and let it wait, sit and wait. I've done that in some projects where I'm kind of concerned, like, this clip might set off something. Like even before I'm done with the episode, I'll just do a render of that chunk, put it up privately, and just let it sit there. If no copyright flag comes back, then I assume it's going to be safe. But that would have to be done much. I would need an editor helping with that if I was going to do that. Also, I don't know if that's something people would be interested in. Again, I don't know if I'd be covering a whole bunch of obscure movies, but I'd probably talk about movies that I had like some definite opinions on. I feel like the videos I should make are the ones where I'm not saying what you're going to hear from every other person. So, you know, if hearing me talk about movies is something people would want to hear, sure, let me know and I can consider it. Because if I'm getting editing help, I don't think that would take up too much time-wise. If I had to go through, get all the clips myself, edit all myself, then do the checks, yeah, that would eat up too much time, I think, compared to the other stuff. But I don't know. I feel like I have to ask in advance now because, you know, whenever I change something, there's always some pushback. And I feel like if I'm going to change something, it has to be something I really think is good. So that's why getting some original kind of scripts and videos out are the sorts of things I'd be more comfortable with throwing up there. But yeah, I can consider it if people want to. Look, man, I don't know what it is. My voice doesn't seem to be holding up today. But on New Year's Day, your girlfriend tweeted, "Even in my dream, I wasn't free until it became a French fry," and quoted that for me saying that. Could you tell us what this dream was about? Yeah, I forget how it came up when I was talking, but I had a dream as a kid where I was a potato and just sort of had adventures. I escaped from a fast food restaurant where I was going to get turned into a French, I was going to get cooked up, but like they cut me up into a French fry, but I was still sort of free after that. I was like more mobile, so I just ran out of the restaurant and escaped. And I don't really remember much of the dream besides that, but it was, I don't know, that one sort of stuck with me. I have lots of weird dreams. Okay, let's see. When the movie is finally released in 5 or so years, hey, I hope it's a lot sooner than that. I'd really like it to be next year. Again, I can't promise, but I hope it's a lot sooner than that. Are you planning on having a premiere screening in Poland or someplace else? You know, I honestly don't know what to do about that because usually with a premiere, that's the first time people get to see it. But I was saying with the internet, things spread so fast now, and this is going to be free. You know, I'm not saving any money by having it, you know, by showing it live ahead of time. I mean, I'd like to connect with fans, but you know, I was just going to put it up on YouTube, the full movie, and anybody can watch it. I'll probably also have some downloadable copies if people want to burn it to DVD or something like that too. Yeah, I don't know how to handle that now. So I figure, you know what, that's still a ways off. I'd much rather worry about that later and just, you know, get the hard stuff out of the way first. 'Cause I figure no matter what I do, as long as the movie's good, that's the main thing, you know. Everything else, I can worry about that when I come to it. But I probably wouldn't premiere it in Poland since most of my audience is in USA. I'd probably travel back to USA and try to go around for a while if I could, but I'd have to figure it out. So I assume the universes of Civil Protection and Freeman's Mind are the same, due to Eddie being in both. So when either Freeman's Mind 2 or a new Civil Protection episode comes out, will we see a cameo? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Eddie. I mean, I feel like Eddie is, you know, he has his role or purpose, and if the setting sort of lent itself to it, then he can make appearance. But I'm not just gonna have him appear for no reason or just to say, "Hey, look, it's Eddie." It would have to be sort of the right context, I think. But I don't know. I like having references to him more than anything else. Do you listen to radio much? No, not really. In fact, sometimes what I do is like if I go and run, I'll sometimes get like a YouTube video and just convert it to an MP3 and listen to that, which you're totally encouraged to do for these video chat sessions. I mean, it's not much in the way of visual aids. It's just me talking to the camera here. So let's see, and then he recommended some. He recommends the Chris Moyles show. I don't know anything about him. Let's see. Well, I guess the thing about radio or talk radio is like there's certain subjects I'm interested in and others I'm not that I don't really care about, or it's just not something I want to spend my time on. So it's tricky finding stuff that kind of hits my interest. I don't know, and that's entertaining. Have you thought to apply your degree or major to a game scenario? Like take one game scenario from anywhere and apply all your academic knowledge to it. My academic knowledge is, I mean, I only have a bachelor's. It's not that extensive. I probably did that more than anything in the Cult Tycoon episode because because cults kind of cross over between criminal justice and psychology. They're both pretty connected, and I don't know. And that wasn't even a conscious thing I was doing. I just thought like, oh, this is a good game concept. This is a good game worth talking about. And I was just looking at it and seeing like the obvious areas that they could sort of tighten things up a little bit on if they wanted to make a more full-fledged game out of it. Okay. Oh yeah, that's another yeah, typical fashion. Given my announcement 30 minutes into the video. For those that missed it, on my birthday, which is December 28th, I had a live Supreme Commander play session, and I totally understand if people don't want to watch that, but I will say that it ended up being more entertaining than I thought it would be. So it's probably the most entertaining live thing that I've done on the internet videos. So check for that on Accursed Farms Junk. It's a separate YouTube channel I have for all the stuff that's not edited and it's just sort of thrown up there. You might find it amusing, guy. But this question is in reference to that. He's saying he enjoys watching real-time strategy streams more than anything because you're literally watching someone's mind work through the plans they execute. Any plans to do any more real-time strategy streams? I could. I mean, I might have to do a rematch of the one that I tried since it didn't quite go according to plan. A lot of people were saying Forged Alliance. I could do it, though. I think Forged Alliance wouldn't be nearly as entertaining to watch because I have a real cheat method that worked for me in that game. But at some point, I'd like to do, it's not real-time strategy, but I'd like to try to do Serious Sam, the second encounter on, the last level on the hardest difficult, or not hardest, but serious difficulty. But yeah, I sort of see the streams as kind of a just sort of a fun side thing, not something I should devote too much time to because, if I look back, I'm not going to be pleased if all I did was just a bunch of streaming. Excuse me. If all I did was just a bunch of streaming video, I'd rather have something you can go back and watch a few years from now and it still has some value to it. And I think my streams at least wouldn't qualify for that. Ross, have you ever tried tabletop gaming such as Warhammer 40K or Dungeons and Dragons? Any interesting stories of the hobby? I did a little bit. The thing is, I don't. Again, I never really liked turn-based combat because it just slows everything down, and that's how a lot of tabletop games are. I have done some in the past. It was more like as a social thing to sort of like if I came back to an area and I just didn't know anybody, it was a way to kind of meet some people or just kind of sort of get together with as an excuse to get together with friends. So I did do some of Dungeons and Dragons. I did do a little bit of a Warhammer 40K role playing thing, uh, where a friend of mine was running it. Uh, actually the friend of mine, he is such a good storyteller. In fact, I really hope to kind of get him more involved on the movie if I can, because I'm sure he'd come up. His sense of humor is great. He makes things really interesting, but just I kind of have to have him in the same room as me to get him to do anything half the time. But there were lots of interesting stories within the games that went on. I don't even have time to get into them. So it's the sort of thing where I'm not so big on the gameplay of it, but I sort of like the interesting scenarios that come out of it, and it can be all right as a social thing, but I'm not heavily invested in it. Let's see. I love your music taste. Do you have a Last FM account or something like that where we can see the song that you're listening to? And if you don't, do you consider making one? No, I don't have anything like that. I could maybe do that in the future. I still need to figure out how I'm sorting all my music. That's just been sort of haunting me because the thing about with music, when I listen to it, or when I want to listen to music, I don't really want to think about it. I just want to get like a general sort of mood or genre, and then hit random play, and then just have things sort of line up. And unless I've sorted it ahead of time, that's not really going to happen with my collection. So I have to figure out a good way to sort it along those lines. I'm still trying to figure that out. Let's see. What are your thoughts on British comedy, specifically Faulty Towers, Monty Python, The Office UK, Top Gear, The Grand Tour, and Ricky Gervais podcast? Well, I'm of course familiar with it, but I've never seen Faulty Towers actually. Monty Python, they can be extremely funny. This kind of varies. I haven't seen The Office UK. I saw like the first episode of the US Office, and it didn't grab me. So I don't know. Maybe it got better, or maybe the UK version's better. Top Gear, I enjoy. Yeah, in fact, I'm not even that. Despite liking big open world racing games, I'm not that big into cars. But pretty much everything about Top Gear is so well produced that it doesn't matter because it's fantastic cinematography, direction, has lots of humor in it. So I'd like to watch more of those. Out of the ones I've seen, my favorite was the one where they're reviewing old communist cars. And I think in that same episode, they drive a car through a mall. That was great. So I haven't seen the Grand Tour or Ricky Gervais podcast. For British humor, it really varies. I mean, I love the old BBC production of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was a miniseries they did. It was just great. I've seen some of the old was it Jeeves and Wooster episodes? PG Woodhouse. Yeah. Before Hugh Laurie decided to do more dramatic stuff, he was a comic actor, and I saw those basically through my mother because she's huge into PG Woodhouse. But those got pretty funny. Whereas I don't know, it's other stuff. It's just like, hey, let's be crude or something, and it just doesn't do much. Oh, what's the name of the show? I've only seen clips of it on YouTube. Jeez, what's the name Okay, I forgot. Maybe somebody will know in the chat. There's this one skit among it. Oh yeah, it's something in Weber, I think. Something in Weber show. Maybe somebody will know in the chat. Uh, something I remember. I highly recommend looking up. Check out the Adventures of Sir Digby Chicken Caesar. It's basically about this crazy homeless Sherlock Holmes going around the city and having adventures. Okay, yeah, somebody's saying that Mitchell and Webb look. That's the name of it. And I've seen some other clips with them. They can be really funny. But yeah, if you want a good place to start, Sir Digby Chicken Caesar. There's clips on YouTube. It's just utterly hilarious. I would love to make something that good. But I've seen some others, and some of their other stuff can be really funny too. So yeah, somebody's saying they have the theme song to Sir Digby Chicken Caesar on their phones. So yeah, it varies. You know, just because something's British doesn't automatically make it good, but you can have some real quality stuff too. Yeah, I guess especially when you contrast that with American comedy. Well, I don't know. You still have funny stuff on like Adult Swim, so it varies. But I've had a lot. I have a lot less faith in a lot of like Hollywood American comedies now. I feel like a lot of good stuff just comes from sort of smaller productions. Okay. Hey Ross, you seem to be a very busy person, which makes me curious about your work routine. How do you typically organize your day? Do you have specific hours for work? Try to work in chunks, work as long as you feel like it? Thanks. It's more like I don't have specific hours. That's actually a really huge perk because I can just actually stop what I'm doing and go exercise or something and come back, or just sleep sometimes. Um, I just generally try. I thought I saw this question and I had to think about it, and I realized there actually is a pretty clear pattern to how I operate. I try to just generally stay busy on something throughout the day. And when I work on things that aren't related to the videos, like again, like the website or Dead Game News or responding to people or just lots of other small things, the longer I go on that, at some point it hits me, oh my God, it's been a good chunk of time since I had a video out. And you know what? I can't just snap my fingers and have a video out. I really need to get moving and spend a couple days, maybe even a couple weeks, depending on the video, and get one out. So then I kind of switch over and just start working on that. And I almost, it seems like at least half the time, maybe less, though. I sometimes go into panic mode and realize like, oh God, and then I just start working on it nonstop to just get it out because I'm having this sort of internal pressure on myself about it. Uh, but it would be good if I get more organized. That's why I'm kind of gonna force myself, like by the end of the month, to just work on the movie, no matter how far I am into the game dungeons or not, because otherwise I just kind of get swallowed up by that, and it just it seems like I never have enough time for anything, unfortunately. So that or rather, in order to have enough time, I would have to lower the quality so much that it wouldn't be it, I wouldn't be happy in the direction that it's going. So it's kind of treading water. Let's see. Uh, so yeah, I just try to always stay busy though is the thing. Like just doing something. That's one of the reasons I didn't do Twitter for so long is because I saw that as just even now I'm pretty happy with how much I've used it. I only use it when I have sort of announcements to make, just sort of short ones, and that's it. Because it would just suck up my time, and I don't think there'd be anything to show for it. But oh yeah, I think okay, yeah, it might have been a different question. Okay, what do you think of Valve's current behavior towards its video game franchises? Do you want to see Half-Life 3 someday? Do you think Valve will ever make another video game? I'm sure they'll publish. I imagine they'll publish another video game. I don't know if they'll make it in house or not. I, who knows what they're doing? I, I, So somebody put in the comments I've answered these questions at different points. That's kind of why I have the Reddit voting, because if it's a question I've answered, but this is like towards the top as to what people are voting for me to answer, then I figure, well, maybe I should answer it again. Uh, I mean, I think Valve's pattern seems to be like someone who's like easily distracted. Like they don't, like they want to kind of move on to something else that's more interesting for them. And some things they do well, some things they don't. The thing I never really liked is that automatic mandatory updates, and there's no way to go back. And I guess that's less for the games and more for like the software development kit or it's like source filmmaker. But I think that's a bad practice. But I mean, I think Valve cares, but their mind's going every other direction. But this is all pure speculation. I have no idea. And as for Half-Life 3, I've burned out the portion of my brain that's interested in Half-Life as a game, so I'm kind of indifferent to it. So there's a lot of other games I'd rather be playing, but I'm not against it. I'm not nearly as excited as I'm sure a lot of other people are. Well, see, somebody's saying Valve hasn't made anything for years. See, that's not even true because I haven't tried it, but they made the lab or something. Those that sort of mini games for virtual reality, and that was a year or two ago. So, but see, that's an easier project for them, so they can. That's fun for them, but then they want to do something else. I think. I think that's how Valve operates now. Yeah, I guess check Valve News. Since I'm in touch with Tyler, check Valve News Network if you want you want to find out an educated opinion about what's going on at Valve, because I have no idea really. Hey Ross, PC Gamer recently published an article about games that are not available to be purchased digitally, but still do exist on CD. I suppose these games aren't exactly dead, but at least not in the same way games that require a server no longer exist are. But I'd still like to hear your thoughts about games in this weird purgatory. And he's asked also, did you get the SSDs you needed to speed up your machinima production? Yeah, I had. Really, sometimes I could use even more space than the one I got. It was a like 480 gigabyte one, but yeah, that made a huge difference in production. No, I don't consider these dead games at all because they're just not they're not the most easily accessible games. But if you want a copy of these, you can either hunt them down on eBay, or sometimes they're just really obscure, or sometimes just abandonware. You can somebody's just put up somebody's made them digital, illicitly, but if nobody's looking after it anyway. I mean, hey, for those Commodore 64 games, I don't own copies. I think I did have a copy of Potty Pigeon at one point. I never had a copy of Bozo's Night Out, but somebody's thrown it up online. Nobody is going to care about the copyright to that, even though legally that's still not kosher. My metric for a dead game is, can you play it in some fashion? And the answer is no, then it is dead. I mean, if they're not putting them up digitally, it's probably just some complication with the publisher, or they're just not really maintaining it. I wouldn't surprise me. I'm honestly surprised when some of the games for Game Dungeon actually are available digitally. Well, hey, I did Revenant before it was available digitally. Same for Strife. So, It's just, you know, some are going to be preserved more than others, but it's, if there's a way to play them, you know, go for it. You know, try to find it. But it doesn't strike me as a huge problem either, as long as, you know, people are trying to archive it in some way, one way or another. Okay, yeah, this is sort of similar to the last question. Hey Ross, what's the process for focusing on working on your projects? Do you just keep going through until you're done? Do you work for a few hours, take a short break, and then continue? All depends on how far behind I am and how close I am to the deadline. Like if I'm still a couple weeks off, then yeah, I might take a break. Or again, like I it's rare that I kind of like try not to neglect exercise because that just keeps my head straight. But again, I just try to go throughout the day. If there's no rush on anything, then usually by the end of the day, I like to have like enough time to just maybe watch a movie or, you know, play some games. But that's about it. For But if it's up to a deadline, like I am trying to make a Christmas episode or a Halloween episode, and I am running behind, almost everything gets sacrificed. I mean, no leisure time, sometimes sleep. I'm really trying to get away from that though, and I did a better job this year. There were complications I wasn't counting on for some things, but uh, I'm getting better at that because it's just hell doing it, just working on videos for just days at a time and not having slept. Or having slept like 4 to 6 hours and going back to it. It's just hell. So I don't like doing that. But yeah, ideally, that's the thing. It's when 8 or 10 hours a day is not enough. You know, then your options start becoming more limited if you want to get it done. Is the thing. So that's what it comes down to. You know, I love being able to work things comfortably, but being able to take small breaks is pretty helpful too. When I can. Dear Ross, you seem to mention a lot of books and things you read. Are you a really fast reader, or do you just recall stuff you read before your life on YouTube? Well, not necessarily before my life on YouTube, but I'm not. I think I read at a normal pace. I'm just mostly recalling things that I remember. And hey, somebody's writing this on the Reddit. I'm not making this up. Don't be shy about leaving your donation links in the descriptions. You are not a sellout. It's only annoying when it's in the video and they do a huge song and dance about it for 30 seconds of the video. Well, I'm not going to do that. I feel like if I had to do that, then I got to reconsider doing something else because I'm just I tend to be kind of all or nothing on this stuff where or not all or nothing, but like I either want to be certain I'm gonna make it or certain I'm not gonna make it, and it's the hazy stuff I don't like that. But when I eventually resume Freeman's Mind, I'll probably put those in the description. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to put that in people's faces either. Let's see. Okay, somebody's talking about a quote from Freeman's Mind. What was I supposed to do? Turn down Black Mesa? Oh yeah, I'll just work at another well-funded facility looking for pure physics work. Theoretical, no less. And they're asking if that was a reference to aperture science. No, it wasn't. It's more a reference to reality in real life. Like, okay, I mean, how many jobs out there, just, you know, available jobs where you really can just work doing pure physics work, you know, not engineering or, you know, more practical applications, just theoretical physics. I imagine most people doing stuff like that probably work at a university, you know, where they can make that part of their job and they're also teaching. No, that I think that's more of a reflection of the job market rather than a reference to aperture science. I mean, I always am happy to try to keep it real when I can in Freeman's mind, especially if but it kind of adds a little more flavor to the episode when it can dip in reality every now and then. So, but as long as I'm keeping it funny, it's the main thing. But yeah, no, that wasn't a reference at all. It was just, well, hey, feel free to check with me if anybody in the chat. Probably not, but if if you have a physics degree, how realistic would it be for you to get a job just in physics? Like no, again, no like practical applications, for like aerodynamics or something, but just theoretical physics. I'm guessing those job openings are not overflowing, you know. So that was the point, This was sort of a dream job for Freeman, to be able to just work researching whatever he wanted. So, a year ago, Ross was planning on making a game dungeon on a very, very bad first-person shooter. Was it Deus Ex Invisible War? No, it was not. No, I mean, come on. Invisible War was a disappointing first-person shooter compared to the original. Alone, it's just sort of okay, I think. No. When I say bad, I mean it's bad. I mean, and this is coming from me, and I'm forgiving of a lot of different stuff on games sometimes. So if I say it's bad, it's probably pretty bad. But no, I plan to do that at some point. That's another one I may inflict upon one of the volunteers to go and finish. I didn't even finish it. I may inflict that on one of the volunteers if I do that. They'll earn their place in the credits if they finish that one. Let's see. Okay, well, we're getting towards the bottom of the Reddit questions. I'll go until a 1 hour mark on Reddit, then I'll look at the others and then go to the chat. Okay, let's see. I lost. Did I? Yeah, okay, I skipped ahead then. What is your favorite Freeman's Mind quote? It's the sort of thing where I'll probably remember it later and then I forget, but I see a lot of them are contextual. One of my favorite moments is still in the earlier episodes where it's like no your other hand, you idiot, where for trying to get the scientist who's hanging by there, or one of the ones I remember is, again, it's contextual. I guess this is how old people feel about stairs when he's just screaming his head off because of the trip mines right next to him. Or I still remember. It's just sort of a fun quote. I can recite the quantum chromodynamic agent variant Lagrangian in my sleep. Because I figure I had to boost Freeman's. I feel like periodically I had to boost Freeman's physics cred, just to give the illusion that he's highly competent in physics. That's why he can get away with having such an abrasive personality at a workplace. But I don't know. See, I'm drawing a blank. There's so many that like I forget about now that I remember it later. And then there'll be ones that I really liked. Yeah, there's just so many to choose from. There's none. Well, that's kind of how Freeman's Mind is. I mean, it might vary from person to person, but I don't feel like there's any one moment that really defines it. It just sort of kind of keeps a certain level and keeps it going with it. This is what I tried to do with it. Okay. Yeah, I think somebody asked the same. Okay. Okay, I guess I'm just tripping. Okay. Okay, well, this one had more points. So I was wondering if you've played the Longest Journey Dreamfall games published by Funcom. And never heard you talk about these games. Uh, I've gotten about a third of the way. I've gotten about a third of the way through the Longest Journey. It's one of those I sort of dropped for a while. I meant to come back to, and then still need to. I haven't played Dreamfall because that comes afterwards. They were interesting. I wasn't. I like the. I was probably more interested in the sort of futuristic area than the fantasy area in those, but I probably just need to play more of them to have a good opinion on where they're going on them as a whole. Because some games can start off great, but then they end not so great. But it's probably going to be a solid game throughout the whole course. I was liking it, though. It also is one of those games where you're pretty much going to have a walkthrough at some point. So, but yeah, good aesthetics, atmosphere, interesting story. I remember the music being all right. So, okay, someone's asking about the movie, saying, "Do I plan to have it be in 3D? Stereoscopic?" Well, not initially for a couple reasons. One, I just want to get the movie made and just kind of keep it simple. And making it stereoscopic would add another dimension of complexity to it. So I'm just going to be focused on the end goal. The other reason is I'm going to be filming it designed to watch on a normal screen, because to hit as wide an audience as possible. So the techniques, I'm not going to be consciously thinking about whether this would look good in 3D or not. However, I am going to save all the source files to everything. So if the movie does really well and people really want like a 3D version of it, maybe I could have somebody else convert that, or maybe do that and rework some shots. Like, so maybe the 3D version's slightly different. Like, instead of just cutting to this person's face, then this person's face, it's instead just one longer shot because it's easier to watch or something. So I'm not ruling the possibility out, but it's more work, and it would be a smaller audience that would actually be able to watch it that way. So whereas my goal for the movie is just make it the best that it can be and hit as wide an audience as possible. So it's an option, but it's not. If it were to happen, it would happen after release of the normal version. I do plan to render it at real high resolution though, so because it'll be all barely any work to render the whole thing at like 4K or 8K compared to just 1080 or something. Oh geez, thought I had to sneeze. To do that more, so I might as well do it that way just to kind of future proof it a little bit. But let's see. Okay, I have 1 minute, so 1 minute on my criteria. So I'll answer an easy one. What is your favorite color? I think this one came up when I was on the Valve News Network. I appeared there for one episode or two. Dark purple, I guess. Yeah, sort of like behind me on the curtain. The I don't know if there's any reason. I always kind of liked how it looked. Plus, like, isn't it in games? Like, usually if you have colors, like purple tends to be like the more mysterious thing. Like green will be like healing or plants or nature. Red's like fire damage. Blue will be like magic or wind, ice. Like just in games. Purple tends to be like kind of mystical or the secret stuff. So I don't know. Maybe it conditioned me to like purple more. So, all right. So I have more questions. These are the ones that are submitted. There were a few more Reddit questions, but they're mostly towards the bottom. So, I I picked Reddit because a lot of people know about it and people can vote on it, but I don't know how many people voted on it. Apparently, they got rid of that feature. So it's just, this has 2 points and this says 5 points. I don't know what any of that means. So give me just a moment. I'm gonna pull up some of the other questions that I thought I had this open, but it looks like I closed the tab. So give me just a moment here. I'm going to look at some more questions that people submitted, and then I'll take questions from the chat or topic. They don't even have to be questions. Like, they can just be, discussion topics if you want. Let's see. Okay, I almost have it. And my stomach's growling. I heard in Metal Gear Solid 3, you can give yourself away if you don't eat enough because your stomach will growl and people will hear the noise. Let's see. Someone's asking how long I plan on growing my hair. Actually, I've been meaning to cut it. It's getting kind of problematic. Yeah, somebody's talking about like head banging. Well, you don't want it the longest for head banging unless you're doing like sort of the swing motion. You kind of, after a certain point, it's actually harder with long hair. So. I'll talk more about hair in a future Game Dungeon episode anyway. What do you suspect you'll do after the movie is finished? I know that's kind of like asking where do you see yourself in 5 years, but a rough idea is what... I almost want... There's a quote, I don't even remember the source. I'm sure there's variations of it throughout time. It's something like the gods laugh hardest at the plans of men or something like that. That's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, assuming things stay about the same, which 5 years, who knows, I mean, I would probably I want to keep making videos, although it's possible after the movie, I may not even want to get anywhere near more animation work. I could be completely burned out, so. Or I might just go back to doing like shorter videos, like Civil Protection. I have an idea for another series I'd like to do, but it's one I would absolutely need help with. But yeah, make more videos ideally, but... Let's see. What's the overall goal of Game Dungeon? It's saying I can't figure it out, whether I'm only covering obscure or interesting games. The overall goal of Game Dungeon is to make a video on games that you hopefully would want to watch. So even if you're not interested in the game, maybe I'm kind of spicing it up to make it more interesting. Or if it's a really... sometimes the game just sort of plays itself, well, not plays itself, presents itself, where there's so many odd things happening or interesting that I don't even have to add much to it. So, yeah, the goal, I'm not trying to do objective reviews or highlight these are the best games. I'm just trying to figure out a way to make this watchable, and define games that, I can make a video on this that's entertaining to watch. So that's the real goal for Game Dungeon. You mentioned using Avira for virus protection. Could you expand on that a little more? What version of Avira do you use? I use the free version. It can get more false positives, but if you look at virus reports, it's frequently toward the top as far as detection rates. So I'd rather have it be a little more paranoid than not enough. Do you think Microsoft will come out with a better OS in a few years that won't have 10's problems? Or do you think 10 will be around for many years to come due to its update structure? Well, the second one, that's their plan that they've stated, but that can mean anything coming from Microsoft. I think what's going to happen is that they got to look at what the industry is going to do, because a lot of big enterprises and businesses are, a lot of them are still on Windows 7. And it could be 10 pushes them to Linux, or who knows what'll happen. In which case, Microsoft might have to cater towards things. The fact that they've done the mandatory automatic updating and they're getting away with it makes me think it's going to be around for some time to come. So, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea, but I'm guessing it's going to be around a long time. That they haven't, that they made it sound like they just want to perpetually update it. I know that certain countries have a different standards of power wattage, and sometimes you need to get a power converter to make sure equipment from another country doesn't get overloaded and shorted out. Have you had to do that there? Well, a lot of electronics will actually work in multiple different countries. You just have to have the right plugs. I mean, because it's cheaper for them to just design it that way and, just ship across the globe and change what you're plugging into it. I had to get a special adapter for a preamp I used to have made, but for overloading it, I think that had to do more with the building than any sort of special equipment. It's probably overkill, but my computer has a 700 watt power supply. And on my old apartment, sometimes, like if I turned it on, I never figured out what the criteria was. It's like sometime if it was plugged in and the switch was turned on, that would trip the circuit breaker. Or sometimes if I plugged it in directly and the switch was already on, then it wouldn't. I never figured out the pattern, but sometimes that would trip the circuit breaker. But then I turn it back on and it wouldn't flip again, or sometimes it would, and it made me kind of. I guess the short version is I'm glad I didn't start a fire inside the walls. So, and that, so far so good. Okay, almost to the end of the questions here. So, oh no, that was the end. Okay, well, the ones I wanted to cover anyway. Okay, so yeah, in the chat, put 3 equal signs before your question and type what you want, and I'll try my best to answer what I can. Though my stomach is growling though, so I don't know if it'll be much more than half an hour. Well, hey, while you guys are asking questions, let's use some questions. Feel free to put this in the comments of the YouTube video when this goes up. I don't always look at the comments, but I'll try to for this chat. Or just email me. What would you like to see more of the channel besides what I'm doing? Like for Game Dungeon, like one of the things I'm trying to, I feel like Kyrandia was sort of like a lower quality Game Dungeon episode just because I kind of know how good the episode's going to be before the script. I mean, once the script is done. And Kyrandia, it's like there were a couple fun moments, but then I realized the rest of it was just sort of a little more placid. Again, I don't think it had anything to do with the length. I think it just had to do with, the subject matter and how I presented it. Would you guys want to see more? If it meant more videos, would you want to see more like that? Or would you rather me just really try to fine tune it? I can't promise every episode will be a home run, but just ones that really kind of stand out a little more, like The Chosen or what was it? Niet 3 or Eternum. What ones like that? I mean, I'm curious what the audience wants. And also, if you guys want to see me talk about movies, or some other topics, something that doesn't eat too much of the time, let me know, because some of this for the YouTube channel, some of this is stuff I personally absolutely want to do. That's most of my energy is going into the movie right now on that. The rest of this is stuff that, yeah, I can do this, and it's partially what you guys want to see too. Like I'm still gonna have, there's still gonna be quality control on my end, so I'm not gonna do anything that I just hate or I think is a bad idea. But if it's, there's a big gray zone potentially. So some people were even talking about bringing moon gaming back, and I mean maybe with a different guest, or if I had an editor, that's the sort of thing that might not be too much work. but it'd still be sometime though. Okay, looking at the questions. Do you think that your life is headed in the right direction? I don't know, man. Sounds. It's like I won't know until later. You know. I mean, sometimes you know for. Sometimes you know it's not going in a good direction. I don't think it's obvious. I want to make the movie. I think that's important to me. So that I'm glad I'm heading in a direction where I'll be able to do that. For everything else, I mean, I feel like in my lifetime, civilization may change quite a bit. So knowing what the right direction is can depend on a whole things we don't even know yet. But excuse me. Beyond that, assuming things stayed about the same, even then I don't know because I have to. If I can pay food and rent, that's critical, you know. So if I'm going in a direction that's going to take me away from that too much, then no, I guess I'm not going in the right direction. But man, it's like, okay, what are the questions here, Ross? Here's one of the hardest. Here's one of the hardest questions we could ask you. What are some of your favorite tropes? You know, I'm not. This is one of those questions I'd have to sort of think about ahead of time. I don't know if it's a trope or not, but I like it when everything just kind of goes crazy, uh, or kind of misleading the audience into a direction you think isn't going to be cool, and then making it cool. Like, okay, for the second thing, here's a perfect example of this. In the movie Blade, there's this scene where these doctors are like performing an autopsy on a body that's been burned. And it's obvious that they've had a relationship in the past. And there's some sort of tension between them. And it's going more, and we just had a really awesome fight scene prior to this. It was awesome, you know. And it's starting to go in a direction like a soap opera almost. It's like I'm starting to think like, is this really what I want to be seeing? Like you know, is this really where they're taking the movie? And then bam, like in them after a couple minutes ago, like the body just gets up and bites one of the doctors just right there, because he was a vampire, you know, and it's just like chaos breaks out. So. I think that's and everyone's like, and then she's screaming, and then I think Blade comes in to save the day. So yeah, that's one of my favorite tropes. Is maybe I don't know what the name of it is, but I'm calling it chaos breaks out. Just you know, let's have just everything go nuts like really quickly. As for other tropes, well, I guess you'll see one or two in the movie. But I'm trying to think of some others. Oh, okay, yeah. I also like it when characters, or you have at least one character keeping it real, like one that's, you know, so much dialogue feels kind of contrived, or you know, you've seen other shows that do this, so this one does it too. Whereas like a character saying, "No, that's a terrible idea. Why would we do that?" Or just like, okay, who cares? We need to do this. You know, they're just being really practical and just cutting through all the crap. I like that in movies and stuff like that. I'll probably think of some more later. Oh, okay. That's a good question. In your game dungeon recently, you mentioned that you might not talk about the music. As a composer myself, I always love that you gave some attention to these essential parts of a game. Can I ask your reasoning behind this? Is there a way I can bribe you to keep it in Game Dungeon for the good of my people? It's more like some games, the music just didn't stand out to me as much on like I don't know. I guess I could just keep it in there if people really want it. I'm trying to remember which episodes. Well, it's like I think it's what it was. Is I might have like a 45-minute game dungeon. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Here's another announcement. Hour 15 minutes in. If you didn't like the short episodes, I still plan to do some short ones, but don't worry. I have it could be the longest one coming yet, and it's because the game really deserves it. It's one I think not a lot of people have heard of. I'm honestly kind of surprised the internet has forgotten about this game. This is a game I know. This is a game I knew from when I started Game Dungeon. I knew I was going to have to cover at some point, and I really like to get that started. Maybe sometime this month, but definitely not later. Definitely not started later than next month. So you've got another big one coming. So, but yeah, back to the music. It's like I really do want to talk about the music when it's just great or just odd or it's really making a difference. I guess the example I'm thinking of, like, I'm sure I have to look at the list of the other episodes I've done, but with like The Chosen, okay, the music's not great. It's like that was already like a 40-minute episode or something. So the longer the episode gets, the more I kind of want to chop out the stuff that's not funny or what am I looking at or more interesting. I kind of get more stringent about what I want to include in there. But I mean, it's like, is it such a shocker the music's not that great for the game? So I don't know if people really. But yeah, I do feel like it can be underplayed. Oh yeah, it's something I like to set the record straight on. A lot of people, maybe I mentioned this before. When I did the Human Revolution episode, a lot of people were thinking I thought the music sucked. No, it didn't suck. It's just that it was always mostly in the background. It just wasn't a. Yes, it fit, but it wasn't as distinctive, and that was sort of what was going on in Invisible War too. I mean, it's pleasant, that they're nice tracks, but I kind of wanted to bring that up because I still get criticisms on that. Where like, oh, I can't trust anything Ross says because they thought the Human Revolution music sucks. No, that wasn't what I was getting at. Just they could have done more. I thought so. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. Try to keep the music. I still plan to talk about. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, another announcement. I'm not getting rid of the awards, and I'm not getting rid of the episode title art. It's just I might save that for the more special episodes. That's all. Like if there's one I really want to do awards on, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So I've turned that to optional, and I felt like the last two episodes didn't really need that. So okay, yeah, I spent time on that question. Russ, you've mentioned that you've seen all the Marvel films. Do you? Well, I probably haven't seen the ones from like the '80s or maybe '90s ones, but yeah, I get dragged to all the major ones because my girlfriend wants to see them. So it's like we have to go to the theater. So it becomes mandatory for me. Do you have a favorite or least favorite? Well, if you count it, I don't know. I guess favorite might actually be Deadpool, but that one wasn't part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is separate. Uh, I guess out of those, the Avengers would probably be my favorite. Uh, the least favorite. I mean, none of them are really that bad, but well, I don't know. I don't know the Hulk one. What didn't that one didn't do that much for me. Or okay, maybe this sounds like blasphemy, but some of the newer ones didn't do as like Captain America: Civil War just kind of felt like it was like kind of half good for me, and then the rest felt like they were trying to work too much stuff in. Yeah, I kind of made a joke that like the Captain America Civil War felt more like Captain America Fight After Class. That's what it felt like. It's like, okay, let's just all stand up here and just like getting a tumble. Like, even though this seems pretty avoidable, like they didn't really sell me on the concept that this is such a huge situation that we're all just gonna drop our rationale and just it felt like they were just trying to find an excuse to have all these characters fight each other rather than some massive threat that really makes sense that everybody's getting split on this. Let's see. Amazon Prime customers get Twitch Prime for free, which comes with free channel subscription. Is there a way for you to use that as a revenue stream? I have no idea. I tend okay. Here's the thing, guys. I tend to assume, from my experience being on YouTube and other companies. Well, hey, for a while I was on Blip, actually. I tend to assume that it's never going to work out. Like any method to like monetize this stuff, you know, I mean, even right now, it's not working out without without donations from fans. Uh, so you know, maybe this one gives you 10% more than the other one, or you get 20% more, but then you get half your audience. I assume you have to be bigger than I am in order for this stuff to work out. Is like a dependable revenue stream. So this is me just. I guess you could call it cynicism, but it's more. I mostly just get depressed thinking about it. So. Let's see, Ross. Back in Strife, you were talking about mood-fitting music. How do you decide which music fits a given episode of Game Dungeon? Well, for Game Dungeon, it's not always what fits. It's what sort of works for the tone I want for Game Dungeon itself. Because some games have some really great music, but there might be real more dramatic and dark and kind of sad. And that's not the tone I want people to walk away with in Game Dungeon. I kind of just want to just kind of keep it fun and happy for the most part. So the music that kind of fits that, or just maybe a little mysterious, that's good too. I like that. So the music in a game that tends to lend itself more to that, I'm gonna go with. Where if it has some music can kind of have depressing overtones to it, man, I really like to cull that stuff as much as I can because I don't really want to depress people coming to watch the episodes. You know, I already did enough of that with stuff like Battleforge and Darkspore. Let's see. Okay, two questions here. How did you and Magda start dating after meeting online? I don't know if she wants me giving details on this, but I'll just give the rough version. She was a fan and wrote to me in email, so we started corresponding. Then later we did Skype video chat, and then later I decided, well, what the hell? I have nothing keeping me here. I'll move to Poland. So that's the simple version. How is it possible the pigeon died in Pigeon Hunter? That's one of the older That's one of the older videos on the channel. Well, he was a big. Pigeons are that stupid, is how it happened. That wasn't planned. Just one of the actors, the bigger guy in the video, just stepped on the pigeon by accident in between shots when I was like, getting a new angle or checking the volume levels or something. So they were just sort of walking around waiting for the next shot. And yeah, he just stepped on one by accident because he wasn't really looking. Pigeons are that dumb. I mean, there's a famous meme, I think, of like a bus driving right by a pigeon, like the tires right next to it. And a pigeon's just, sort of like that. So but hey, like a true director, I wasn't gonna waste the opportunity. That was not planned. There was no animal cruelty involved, no intentional animal cruelty planned with this. But you know what? We have a dead pigeon. Might as well put it in the video. So that's I improv that at the end there. Let's see. I think I was just gonna end it with them chasing the pigeons, but hey, we have a dead pigeon. It's already dead. Might as well use it. So. Ross, I sent you a gift for your birthday. It's sent to Ross W. Scott. Hope you like it. I think I replied to one person just before the chat. I was meaning to, but this might be somebody else. So. Ross, are you at all concerned that you're digging yourself a hole with the movie given how long it's taking? I was working on a video game for over a year by myself, then I realized it was never going to happen, so I abandoned it. Man, don't say stuff like that. No. Hey, you know what? I finished The Tunnel, okay? That one was like half an hour long. That one got started and stopped for years on end. I finally made the final push and I finished it. I made the civil protection episodes. I don't know how much time they took. Like it's hundreds of hours collectively, easily. Maybe even thousands. I don't know for all of them. So, and my biggest concern is that it would just take a lot longer than I wanted it to. But no, it's gonna happen, man. Like the hardest part, the hardest part is just making sure I can get enough videos out to not lose my whole fan base and have enough income coming in to just pay rent and to pay food and rent. That's like if I did not have to worry about that, then like it would just be clear straight shot. I mean, it's going to be a hell of a lot of work, but I have so much drive for it that don't cast doubt on it. In fact, that's what made me feel good about. I remember I was cutting that a lot closer than I should have, making the Christmas episode and some other things. But when I was finishing up Freeman's Mind, I got sick of the negativity of people saying he's not going to finish it. He can't do it. And like, how do you feel, Ross, knowing you can't do it? There were these people really trying to like get a rise out of me. But what made me feel so good is I just basically told everybody, put up or shut up. And I took bets against everyone saying, you know what? Yeah, I think I told people I was going to ban people from the forum of people saying I'm not going to finish it unless they were willing to bet money against me that I wouldn't, because that's how much confidence I had. And again, I cut it a lot closer than I should have. But hey, even if I was late, I would have finished it, So, and that made me feel good because I probably made $150 just from bets of people betting I wasn't going to finish it. So I have confidence in myself, man. And it's like, it's just a really deep innate drive I have for this. And it's just the logistics is the only thing. Again, I finished The Tunnel. It wasn't perfect and maybe could use a sequel, but the parts I wanted to all came out basically the way I wanted them to. So, and that took years, and I won't be in the source engine, so that'll give me some advantages. So. Would you consider developing or collaborating in the development of your own game? Not at this point in time. I mean, as much as I talk about games, I feel like I would need more time to just sort of sit and think about like what the sort of game I would want. Again, it's a lot easier to see shortcomings in a game after it's already in a playable state than it is to come up with it from scratch. Or you can envision something great from scratch, but in order to really be good, it would take so much work that it's like I just sort of shut those thoughts out. But yeah, not while I'm working on the movie. Is a hot dog a sandwich? I don't know. Should go get a snack so you can chat longer. Well, yeah, I could get a snack. Well, one, I don't want to like eating food in front of the camera, but the other thing is, I get probably an equal amount of complaints about how long these chats are versus not doing it long enough. So I kind of want to hit some middle ground. I guess, yeah, I don't care if a hot dog is a sandwich or not. Like it's, I guess, I guess no, because when you say, oh, I want a sandwich, most people don't think of a hot dog. So yeah, I guess that's in practical terms, no, but maybe technically yes. What inspired you to make Ross's game dungeon and not something else? It, well, I'd say part of it was stuff like Angry Video Game Nerd, but you know, and some other YouTube reviewers coming out, you know, where they would make a video and it'd be just really genuinely fun to watch. But also, I realized I've been kind of tracking down these interesting games for a long time now, and I would see articles where sometimes where there'd just be pure game journalism ignorance, like they just like I didn't see how you could mention this game without at least mentioning this other one. And I realized, you know what? You don't have to know anything to make a show or an article on games. You can just say whatever you want. It's like, well, geez, I have more qualifications than that. And hey, some of these games I've never seen anyone else talk about. So hey, maybe those are good candidates for it. So I just decided to try it as an experiment, and it's going okay so far. But yeah, I was yeah. It's like when people to give it. Well, I've already mentioned the ignorance about graphic adventure games, but some I've seen this another one I've seen before, though not so much now since I think it's been mostly corrected in the sort of collective mentality. Or some people are thinking Resident Evil was the first survival horror game. It's like I think it might have been the first to use that term. I don't know, but even if you don't count all the earlier ones, like from the 80s, 90s, geez, maybe even earlier, but Resident Evil itself copies so heavily from Alone in the Dark. I think it's better. I think it's a better game, but you know, to not even mention Alone in the Dark, like if you're talking about the history of Resident Evil, is just like, what are you doing then? That's why I set my standards low for Game Dungeon, because I might miss some really critical information. So I'm just kind of approaching this like, well, what do we have here? You know, like so. And oh yeah, and the follow up episodes. I plan to get started on that at some point. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I'm about 20 minutes behind on the chat, so I'll try to get. Okay, well that one I know has been asked a couple times, so I'll wait till it gets voted up on Reddit to answer that one again. Can, can you imagine a life where you shaved, cut your hair, and started to work at the local post office? Well yeah, I mean, going postal, you know. I mean that's what the expression came from. Is they just sort of funneled these. Not that I'm a veteran, but they funneled these veterans into government jobs that, you know, they didn't have any place to put them, and they weren't all right in the head, and they just threw them in the post office because, you know, a lot of people can do that job, and they weren't ready for it mentally, so they snapped. So yeah, the thing with normal jobs is some of them I'm okay with. Others, it's just a matter of time before I'm going to lose my mind. So it's, I think post office might fall in that second category. I don't know. Russ, do you see yourself directing or writing for other films if your movie gets noticed by the right people? I guess. I don't know. I mean, the thing about making movies is it doesn't have to be me or or has to be my thing. I just kind of like when I'm in like making a movie or like an episode, I just kind of want it to be as good as it can. And this is a good idea. Like if somebody had like a just dynamite script that was better than anything else I came out with, absolutely, I would use theirs. Or if Well, I don't know. I was thinking for somebody direct, their directing can be trickier. I have to really like their style in order to just hand over direction to somebody else. But writing, yeah. But as for gets noticed by the right people, that's not really an aspiration either of mine either way. I mean, yeah, it would be nice if I could hit a wider audience or get more exposure or a bigger production or something like that. But that's not really the goal behind movies. It's just like, hey, let's make something that's like really enjoyable to watch, or this scene is so great, or this guy is just the right emphasis with his acting, or this music fits so well. That's the stuff I'm looking for. So whether it's me or comes from somebody else is doesn't really matter, you know. I mean, just put in the credits and just make it the best you can. Yeah, I mean, it matters as far as giving credit, but you know, I'm not advocating just ripping people off. You okay? Let's see. Hey Ross, what all do you need volunteers and help for currently? I have a lot of my time on my hands, so I want to help you out in some way, shape, or form. I even need to reply to some people who've emailed me on that. Um, I have to go through. Some of this stuff is going to be things I need after I get the website modified. Uh, Unfortunately, I'm bottlenecking a lot of things right now. Is the problem? So I have to catch up on more things before I can answer that question. This is why my plans tend to be stuff I will do and stuff I'd like to do because things can kind of come up that or everything takes longer than I think it will, and then I'm behind in other areas. Just I guess send me an email about offering to volunteer, and then I'll make sure I remember that email or make a note of it so that way I can maybe contact you later if you want to help with something. What do you think about the current state of Flash games? If a Flash player emulator isn't invented, problems will ensue. Well, uh, I'm sure there's complications, but there already is a standard. It's been this way maybe 10 years or more. There already is a standard Flash player program. You don't need a web browser or anything. Like you can just, it's like a shockwave player or something. Uh, so you can just, if you can grab it out of cache, you can just run it on the local computer, unless they have all these hooks to it. The game won't run unless it's talking online or going through their special system for ads or something. But I'm we probably will lose some, but I'm a little more optimistic about that. That seems to me a much more solvable problem from a complexity perspective. So because if you what like with a dead game like okay, okay, well I shouldn't get too far into talking about things I may not know. I'm not a coder, so I just have sort of general concepts, ideas. So better let somebody else get more into detail. Okay, I know okay, somebody's asking about my Argentina reference in the Eternum episode. I know I could swear I answered that before in like an earlier video chat. Look up the Argentina economic crisis. That's what I thought we were kind of drifting towards, and like the sort of aftermath. What's the story behind that pixelated green alien you use as an avatar? Oh, that's the Yorp from Commander Keen. I just thought it was sort of a. It was a good avatar, and I just decided to sort of keep it. I just I like how they look. Okay, somebody's asking me if I've seen a show that I haven't. I listen to a lot of game soundtracks and usually blow through them so quickly I'm constantly in search of more. Well, maybe you can help with trying to come up with an organization system for me. I found many gems in the Accursed Farms forum, such as Neo Tokyo, Endless Space, and multiple Doom covers by Zeotroid. I was wondering if you have any favorite game soundtracks that you would recommend. I'd have to pull up. Oh, here, I can pull up a folder. I mean, there's a lot more than what I'm going to remember. So these are probably going to be older ones because I'm not organized with some. And then some of these I don't want to reveal yet because they're going to come out on Game Dungeon. So let's see. Yeah, the game wasn't that great, but there's a couple good tracks on Dominion, Storm Over Gift 3. Like, if you like the Half-Life music, you'll probably like... That's another one of those that's like good music, but sort of sad overtones to it. Though, let's see. Well, Forsaken has a great soundtrack. They use that in Civil Protection. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just sort of... I guess you're probably wanting like lesser known soundtracks too. Well, I'm glad I put the Rama one out there. That was... Yeah, now anybody can grab that one. Some of these will have like good... Well, this one's sort of... I know I never played this game, but it was like recommended to me, and the music was actually pretty nice. The Praetorians... I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's sort of a Roman strategy game, I think. Or, geez, I'm so far behind on soundtrack stuff. I need to organize my music, and that's one of those things that just gets endlessly neglected. Well, yeah. That's one of those questions I would need. I need time to prepare. You know how like some... Like on a test, some questions you know right off the bat, others you have to study for. That's what I need to study for. Ross, if you're not a fan of turn-based strategy, does that include card games? Or do you still enjoy poker or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or even Hearthstone? Card games sort of activate a different part of my brain, actually. I usually play like card games when I'm like really busy. Well, busier, but I want like a 15-minute break. Hey, actually, I'm going to talk about some dead game news. One of them's shutting down this month, Soulforge. Yeah, I can like them. It depends. Like, I've played some Magic the Gathering. Hearthstone never... See, okay, this sounds dumb, but part of what I like... Spellweaver was decent, too. Part of what grabs me on a card game is the artwork. Like, I have to like the sort of atmosphere they're building with all their cards, because I'm a sucker for atmosphere. So I imagine most people who play these, they couldn't care less about that. You know, it's all mechanics. But in terms of art, I think still Magic the Gathering's the gold standard. But that's actually one of the reasons I didn't really get into Hearthstone much, is because the art style never was quite my thing as much. But yeah, I've played a couple of those. But they're not something I'm heavily into. But man, if I need like 10, 15 minutes to kill, it's perfect. Because I can just play a round or two. Okay, then back to work. You know. Any update on whether you'll be switching to Unity for the movie? No, not yet. That's part of what I'll be looking at the end of the month. I mean, I have an answer by the end of the month, but that's what I need to look into more of. Really, if Unreal is stable, then I probably won't switch, but I'm getting a lot of mixed reports. So if anybody's worked in either one and has... Basically, I want to hear the horror stories about what can go wrong. So... I mean, I shouldn't be doing anything too exotic from a technical perspective. I'm essentially creating just a bunch of cutscenes. So, but who knows, you know, with game engines. Ross, what is the story with the Halo videos you made? Was it just you goofing around with friends and decided to make a video of it? No, it was planned. In fact, you know how I've said that. I've said before, like every video I've made, I always see a problem with it and something I would change. Some more than others. The Halo one, no, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, maybe the visual for the equipment I had at the time, yeah, the visual quality could be a little bit better, but that's it. No, it's don't need to change anything. What kind of software tools do you wish existed that would make your job easier? Well, I'll probably find out when I'm making the movie, but, uh, geez, okay, yeah, the one that's going to be one of my bigger concerns about the movie. Okay, you know how you have in games, I've mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. You know, yeah, in games like The Sims or Elder Scrolls, you know, you start off and you can generate the face you want, or a lot of MMOs, you know, make the nose longer, eyes squintier, that sort of thing. And then once you've made that character, uh, like if they have like lip animation, it'll sort of work and the expressions because it's all sharing this internal skeleton. You know that so you know if one person's laughing, it'll transfer to the next person. What software can you use to make that for just sort of general 3D models? Because that's all like in-game stuff. Whereas we're I could really use something like that for making characters for the movie, where you start off with like a basic sort of male or female template, and then just change things. Okay, this guy's a little more fat on his face. This person's bald. You know, this person has beady eyes. So you just tweak little things to make them look like different characters, but then you have a standardized animation system that you can use to so that you can use to animate all the characters. I think I'm gonna have to sneeze again. Okay, maybe not. So any tool along those lines would be great. Another tool that would be really helpful would be kind of some of what was in the source software development kit, except I want this either for Unreal or Unity, whichever one I end up going with. It's I want to automate as many smaller things as I can. So say you have a walking animation. I don't want to tell the walk in, you know, in Source SDK, you could just say, okay, walk to this point, and then walk to this point, and walk to this point. And they would already have the animations, and they would know how the feet would interact with the ground, more or less. And they would walk, and they would know once they get to this point to turn, or maybe, you know, do it a little more smoothly. Or if you wanted them to run, that would work too. Now you can't. Now you're not going to be able to do that with the same sort of precision that you would by hand animating it. Or you know, maybe and so for, like for an action sequence that might not be so good. But if you just want people walking around in the background or doing that would be really helpful to have some tools for like that ready to go. So that way I don't have to. The more shortcuts I can take and still have it not look like garbage, that's gonna the better for the movie. So passable shortcuts is what's gonna help me out. Same thing for lip sync solutions. What? There's some other, or like, or you can tell a character to duck here. I'm trying to think of like, bulk animations I'm gonna need for the movie. But yeah, the walking was a pretty good example because of course there's gonna be tons of characters walking in the movie. Or yeah, I think there's some software. I forget one where like say you have two characters walking and they intersect. Well, the software knows to just sort of interpret this animation it'll predict it ahead of time or maybe on the fly, I don't know, where it knows to sort of walk around the two people just sort of walk to the side sort of naturally rather than having them clip through each other or just come to a dead stop. So yeah, stuff that makes animation easier. That's the anything that's going to make animation easier that I can kind of reuse, recycle in places where it's not going to be that big a deal to do that. I don't want to. I don't want to take shortcuts to the point where everything looks stupid, but there's some. I'd rather have the animation work go into a really awesome action sequence rather than all that work go into just some guy in the background walking around the corner, you know. So kind of be smart with where the time's getting spent. What style are you looking for as for the voice acting goes for the movie? Like more cartoony and out there, or more grounded and realistic? Well, I want realistic, absolutely. However, there, I'm not going to go for cartoony so much as I'm sure most people know have come across some strange people in your lives, or people who are a little more bombastic or expressive. I'd like to have a lot of memorable characters in the movie, so I do want all the acting to be pretty believable and realistic, but that in no way has to constrain it to just, talking calmly or without lots of wild emotions or anything like that. So, have you seen the trailer for the game Scorn? No, I haven't. Guess Ross, what are your computer specs? Well, right now right now about half of it's from fan donations. Actually, I'm running a Xeon. This was donated. I think it's V3E1231. I don't. Geez, I forget what it is, but it's. I think it's 3.4, 3.5 gigahertz, and also fan donation. I have a GeForce 770. I have 8 gigs of RAM. A lot of hard drives that I've mostly bought myself over the years, but they're not all in the system. A lot of those are external. I use for long-term backup. Uh, yeah, well, those are the main specs. Well, I have the SSD I bought after doing the Freeman's Mine fundraiser. That's a crucial. I forget. It's 480 gigabyte drive. And then I have another one that was donated. I have a 160 gigabyte SSD for a system drive that was also donated by a fan. So yeah, half of my system now, at least half is donated by fans. So. Oh boy, I think this is the same person that asked me, "Am I heading the right direction in life?" I have to check the chat. What would you say can fill the existential hole that plagues many modern people through your craft of video making? Escapism. That's probably the best. That's probably the best thing I have. Which is why I kind of want to drift away from more serious topics when I can, unless they're in kind of a funny way, Okay, so good. I had an answer for that one. I don't really have an answer for this one. Have you ever listened to the music from Risk of Rain? Yes, I have. And is it 90% of the soundtrack just a variation on the exact same theme? I mean, it's all right, but like, somebody check that, because I've heard people say, "Oh, Risk of Rain's music's so great," but from what I remember, it's like the same song over and over again, just varied a little bit, and maybe like a boss music or menu music or something. Okay, this has been asked a bunch, but I'll answer it. Does the movie have a title? Yes, it does, but I'm keeping that a secret for now. It reveals a little bit of the plot, what the movie's going to be about, but it's a good title. I like it, but hey, maybe I'll get a domain name for it later. So, but by nobody knowing what it is, that keeps. I don't have to get it now. Yeah, someone has mentioned Mixamo Fuse for the. So I think I'm sure we looked at Mixamo Fuse and sure as far as just basic research. I don't think I've tried it though. I can't remember if it had a problem or not. Okay, I think I'm catching up on the chat. So I'm getting pretty hungry. I'll answer 3 more questions. If people have ones that I think are good ones to answer, then I'll just go ahead and say bye and get some food. Yeah, someone wants to know the next game on Game Dungeon. I honestly don't know yet. It depends kind of what gets done first. I mean, it's besides, I like to keep it a surprise when I can. I will say, like for real mainstream games, it doesn't matter. But for other lesser known games, I admit there is a little bit of a paranoia. You have that you're working on an episode, and if you say what it's going to be, then some other major game person is going to review it like the day before you do, and then it makes you, or a week before, it makes you look stupid, like you're just copying them. So I try to avoid that. It's kind of funny. Through pure coincidence, I released the ski episode on Christmas, and the day after, Lazy Game Reviews releases a video on a snowboarding game with that also had extreme in the title, and was not good. So, I mean, no, his video was fine, but the game itself wasn't good. So it's like we were thinking the same thing, it just completely independently. Okay, here's another question. Do you think your life has been extraordinary so far? I don't know if extraordinary is the word I've used. I mean, it's not like I've lived through a war or, you know, explored a new region on the planet or something. I think I think it's more unconventional than I would have thought it would have ended up being. Maybe because I don't, because the way, well, a lot of people don't have like regular steady work, and I ended up moving out of the country, which ended up for a relationship, and it ended up being more economical. So I don't know, and I'm getting to work making videos, which that alone, yeah, that's kind of extraordinary. Being able to even survive this long working at something creative. At the end of the Begathon video, I mentioned that quote from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It's like that's how it feels. It's like somehow you managed to keep this job going. You don't get this feeling of guarantee with everything. So I'd say my life's not that extraordinary, but maybe unconventional. Okay, I don't want to end the chat on this question. I'm going to skip it. Sorry, Klaus Van Dam. Will you be photo scanning people to make character faces? Probably not, but I'll probably be leaving a lot of the character generation to other people. So as long as they have just sort of a general look I'm going for, whoever ends up doing the modeling will probably dictate the final look as much as I will. So if that works for them and they can find the right types of people, then sure. But okay, I think that was 3 questions, and I didn't pronounce his name right. Okay, that's a good place to end this. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, this is a decent question. It's come up, but I don't mind repeating it. Did the partnership with that guy with the glasses .com end? Yes, it did. I'd say it was about 85% my fault and 15% their fault. because I sort of, because there was the system you were supposed to use to submit the videos, and mine screwed up. I said like, hey, my password doesn't work. It's like, oh, okay, we'll get to that. And they never got back to that with me. So I was supposed to send it to another guy to put it up, but then I fell behind on submitting the info to them. And then later I found out through just like a really, I forget, I don't even remember how I found it out, but it wasn't directly. They never gave me a warning that they were going to kick me, like if I didn't get my act together, and they never informed me that they actually got rid of me. But I did find out that they actually did, but they never told me. So if I had been really hell-bent on staying on there, I would still be on there, but I was getting swarmed with other stuff, and then like having to keep track of where to send the information to everybody else was kind of overwhelmed me. Okay, and yeah, okay, this is a good, I think that's a good place to end this, because somebody's asking a question in the chat, like just now, that I answered, like in this session. So, see, this is why I could just do this for a filibuster. It would go on forever, you know? So, all right, that's it, guys. More videos coming. We're working on lots of different things. Should pay off as far as something to watch at some point. See you later.